My son flew to the coast with his wife and his mother-in-law and left me at the farm to work in the garden. The next day, my son called me, "Mom, what's going on with the cards? We can't withdraw a single cent or pay for anything." I responded with something nobody saw coming. Can you imagine pouring your entire life, 73 years, into building a home, a family, a legacy, only to have them try to erase you? To literally plan to steal everything you have, sell your farm, and dump you in a nursing home? Trust me, the sheer rage and disbelief that washed over me when I found out was enough to bring a dead woman back to life. And let me tell you, what happened next was a reckoning they never saw coming. For decades, this farm, this family, was my whole world. My back still aches from the endless days under the brutal sun. My hands are calloused from tending every plant, every animal. I'd given them everything. And this is how they repaid me. Just this morning, my son, David, came to me with that sickeningly fake smile he inherited from his wife, Amber. He said, "Mom, you stay at the farm. Someone has to look after the garden." Amber stood there, draped in a new red dress, looking at me like I was just another piece of hired help. Her mother, Catherine, barely glanced up from her expensive phone, as if I didn't even exist. "It's only for a wedding, a week, Mrs. Margaret. You understand," she mumbled without a flicker of genuine concern. "Only for a week." As if planting and watering were some trivial pastime, a game. As if all these 73 years, all my blood, sweat, and tears, had been for absolutely nothing. I watched them load the car, their suitcases stuffed with clothes I had washed and ironed, towels I had folded, shoes I had cleaned. They were off to the coast, ready to squander the money this very land produced, while I was left here, under the burning sun, with hands covered in the soil they believed belonged to them. But then, as the dust from their car settled on the winding road, as an unsettling silence filled this suddenly empty house, the kitchen phone shattered the stillness. It rang, a sharp, jarring sound that cut through the air like a knife. It was the bank. "Mrs. Margaret," the voice on the other end said, "we need to confirm some urgent transactions." My heart didn't just stop, it plummeted into my stomach. Not from fear, not yet. From something deeper, a cold dread, a suspicion that had been festering in my chest like a poisonous weed. "What kind of transactions?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, even though a part of me already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. "Your son, David, attempted to make a transfer of $50,000 this morning. And there are also attempts to change the ownership on several accounts. Since you're the primary account holder, we need your authorization." $50,000. That was the money we had just saved from selling the cattle last month. The money that was meant for fixing the leaky roof, for buying the medicine I desperately needed, for ensuring this farm continued to produce and feed us all. That money was our lifeline. "I don't authorize anything," I said, my voice rising, unrecognizable even to myself. "Block everything. Right now." I hung up the phone, my hand trembling, and just stood there in the kitchen. These yellow walls, which I had painted with my own hands a decade ago, now seemed like silent witnesses to all the indignity, all the quiet suffering I had endured. That night, as I watered the tomatoes and lettuce they would soon eat upon their return, my phone vibrated. It was David. "Mom, what happened with the cards? We can't withdraw a single cent. Can't pay for anything." His voice was desperate, almost hysterical. I could hear Amber screaming in the background, and Catherine cursing in that elegant, clipped tone she always used when she thought no one was listening. "Mom, are you there? Answer me." I took a deep, steadying breath. The air smelled of damp earth and the jasmine flowers I had planted 20 years ago, back when I still foolishly believed this family valued me. "I'm here, David. Just be calm. We're stranded in this hotel. We can't even pay the bill." "What did you do?" "What I did." As if protecting my own money, my own future, was a crime. As if I didn't have the right to decide what was rightfully mine. "I did what I had to do, son." "But Mom, it's an emergency. We need the money." An emergency. Their beach vacation was an emergency, but my blood pressure medicine wasn't. The roof leaking over my bed wasn't. The expenses of the farm, the very land that supported this entire family, were not. The only emergency here, David, is that I finally opened my eyes. I ended the call right then and there. I had worked my entire life for this family. I had sacrificed my dreams, my youth, my very health. And now I was discovering they were planning to take even the last thing I had left. But there was something they didn't know. Something I had discovered just 3 days ago, when Helen, my closest neighbor and dearest friend, came over for coffee and quietly told me what she had heard in town. Something that changed everything. This story, my dear friends, was just beginning. 3 days before, Helen came to visit me, as she does almost every afternoon. She always brought her favorite mug, the white ceramic one with the painted flowers I'd given her last year. She settled into the rocking chair on the porch, the same one where my late husband used to read his newspaper. "Margaret," she said, her soft voice dropping to that serious tone she uses when something truly important needs to be said. I need to tell you something I heard in town. I was peeling oranges for juice, but something in her tone made my hand stop. The peels fell to the floor like small, withered suns. What is it, Helen? She looked towards the road, as if afraid someone might overhear us. Yesterday, I was at old Mr. Henderson's law office. I'd gone to renew the papers for my land, remember? And while I was waiting, I overheard Amber talking on the phone. My heart started to beat faster, a frantic drum against my ribs. Amber at the lawyer's office? That couldn't be a coincidence. She was talking to someone about selling the farm, Margaret. She said they already had a buyer, that they just needed to convince you to sign some papers, that they were going to tell you it was for renewing the insurance. The oranges rolled across the floor, ignored. My hands trembled like leaves caught in a sudden storm. Are you sure about what you heard? As sure as my name is Helen Marie, and there's more. She also mentioned something about changing the bank accounts to David's name. She said it was more convenient for a woman your age. Helen paused, her eyes filled with sorrow. And then, Margaret, I heard something that chilled my blood. She said that after the sale, they were going to take you to a nursing home in the city, that they had already set aside the money to pay for it. A nursing home. As if I were a piece of old furniture that was no longer useful. As if these 73 years of life, of struggle, of love, were worth nothing. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling that still leaks when it rains, every strange conversation from the past few months suddenly clicking into place. The times Amber and Catherine would fall silent when I entered the living room. The hushed phone calls, the papers they would quickly put away when I came near. I remembered when Amber had come over 6 months ago with that green folder, insisting I sign some insurance documents. I had signed without reading, trusting them like a fool. What was really in those papers? Everything made sense now. David's insistence that I go to the bank to update my information. The constant pressure for me to give them power over my accounts, in case something happened to me. Catherine's frequent visits, she who before barely spoke to me, now coming with store-bought cakes and those sickeningly fake smiles. I got up before dawn and walked all over the farm, my feet finding their familiar paths. I touched every tree I had planted, the avocado trees from when David was 10, the mango trees that grew up with him. I walked through the garden where I had taught my granddaughter to recognize plants, before Amber decided it was too dangerous to bring her here. This land had my footprints on every meter, my sweat had watered every furrow, my tears had fed every seed. And they wanted to take it from me, like taking a toy from a child. The next day, very early, I walked to Helen's house. Her chickens were clucking in the yard, a comforting sound, and the smell of burning wood came from her chimney. I needed to think. I needed a place where I felt safe, where the air was clear. Her small kitchen always smelled of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. Helen, I said, my voice hoarse, I think I have to do something before it's too late. She poured me coffee in that flowered mug and sat across from me. Her eyes, the color of old honey, looked at me with an understanding that only years of true friendship can give. What do you need, Margaret? I need to go to the bank today and to the lawyer too. But first, I need you to help me review all the papers I've signed lately. We went back to my house and sat at the dining room table. I took out all the folders, all the documents I had saved without fully understanding them. Helen has better eyesight than me, and she knows how to read the fine print. Margaret, she said after an hour of reviewing, her voice trembling. These papers you signed last month, they give David the power to sell properties in your name. My world swayed. I had signed my own death sentence without even knowing it. And this one gives him full access to all your bank accounts, Margaret. With these papers, they can do whatever they want with you. I cried. For the first time in years, I cried like a child. I cried for my naivety, for my blind trust, for having raised a son capable of betraying me like this. But the tears dried up quickly. In their place came something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Rage. A clean, clear rage that filled me with an energy I thought I had lost forever. We went to the bank together. There, the manager, a young woman with a kind but concerned voice, explained everything David had tried to do over the last 2 months. Loan applications using the farm as collateral, attempts to change the authorized signatures, requests for copies of all my bank statements. Luckily, Mrs. Margaret, she told me, you had given us specific instructions years ago not to authorize anything without your physical presence. Your son seemed very upset when we told him we needed to speak with you first. He even brought a lawyer last week, insisting he had a legal right. Very upset. Of course, he was upset. His carefully laid plans to rob me were failing because of a small detail he had forgotten. Years ago, when my husband died, I had been cautious. I had put those restrictions in place in case one day I lost my memory. What can I do to protect myself completely? I asked. Cancel all the powers of attorney you have granted. Change all your passwords. Establish new restrictions. And if you want my advice, Mrs. Margaret, do it today. Then we went to the lawyer, Mr. Davies, an older man, the kind who inspires confidence the moment you see him. His office was full of books and smelled of old wood and quiet wisdom. Mrs. Margaret, what you're telling me is very serious, but it has a solution. These documents you signed can be revoked. You were under emotional distress. You didn't have independent legal representation. He explained my rights. He showed me how to protect my assets, how to make sure no one could take what was rightfully mine. I signed new documents. I changed all the authorizations. I put legal locks in place that neither David, nor his wife, nor his mother-in-law could ever break. And if they try to force me to sign something? I asked, my voice still a little shaky. These documents protect you, Mrs. Margaret. No one can force you to do anything with your property. And if anyone tries, that's called coercion, and it's a crime. Besides, I have notified the bank and the notary's office. Any document they try to submit with your signature will be verified directly with you. I returned home that afternoon feeling different, as if I had woken up from a long, confusing dream. The farm looked the same green mountains in the background, the same infinite sky, the same trees I had planted with my own hands decades ago. But I was no longer the same woman who had left that morning. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt in control of my own life. That night, when David called to tell me about the trip, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. I let them leave. I let them believe they had won, that old Margaret would obediently stay home, taking care of the garden like just another employee. But while they were packing their bags, I was packing mine too. Not to go anywhere, but to stay. To plant my roots deeper than ever. And when the bank phone rang the next day, I was ready. The storm was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, I had an umbrella. David's call woke me up on the second day. His voice sounded different, higher-pitched, with that tone he used as a child when he knew he'd done something wrong. Mom, there's a problem. The cards aren't working. None of them. I sat up in bed slowly, feeling the morning sun stream through the window overlooking the yard. The chickens were already clucking, demanding their food. Life was going on as normal here, while theirs was falling apart 200 miles away. What kind of problem, David? We can't pay for anything. Not the hotel, not the food, not the gas. It's like all the accounts are frozen. I heard Amber screaming in the background. Her voice was distorted over the phone, but I managed to make out a few words. Useless. Your mother. Fix this. Mom, I need you to go to the bank right now. It must be a system error. A system error. As if I were that naive. It's not an error, David. Silence. A long, heavy silence, filled only with the faint sound of waves I could hear in the background. They were at the beach, under expensive umbrellas, while I was supposed to be sweating in my garden. What do you mean it's not an error? I mean, I canceled all the cards. I froze all the joint accounts. I revoked all the authorizations you had. Another silence. This one. Heavier than the last, thick with disbelief. Mom, you can't do that. We depend on that money. We. As if we were partners. As if they had worked a single day on this farm to earn that money. And whose money do you think that is, David? It's family money. You can't just leave us stranded here. Family. That word they had been using to manipulate me for months. Family when they needed money. Family when they wanted me to sign papers. But not family when they were planning to sell my house and lock me in a nursing home. David, come home. All of you. Right now. We can't come. We don't have money for gas. Then walk. Or borrow. Or do whatever you have to do. But come home. I hung up before he could answer. My hands didn't tremble this time. I felt strangely calm, like when the shock wears off after an accident and you realize you're still alive. That morning, I worked in the garden like never before. I planted new seeds of cilantro and parsley. I watered the tomatoes that were beginning to ripen. I pulled the weeds that were growing between the lettuce. Every single movement was an affirmation. This land is mine. These plants are mine. This life is mine. Helen arrived around noon as always. But this time, she didn't bring her flowered mug. She brought a bag full of freshly made pastries and a bottle of bourbon. To celebrate, she said with a smile that crinkled her whole face. Celebrate what? That you finally got your nerve back, Margaret. We sat on the porch, eating pastries and taking small sips of the bourbon that burned my throat in the best possible way. The midday sun fell on us like a blessing. Do you think I did the right thing, Helen? Honey, the only thing you did wrong was taking so long to do it. She then told me that for months, she had seen how I was fading away, how I stopped smiling when I talked about David, how my shoulders had started to stoop under the weight of always being available for everyone. Your late husband, God rest his soul, once told me, Helen, if anything happens to me, make sure no one takes advantage of Margaret. She's too good for her own good. Those words touched my soul. My husband had seen something I had refused to see for years. The phone rang again at 3 in the afternoon. This time it was Amber. Mother-in-law, we need to talk. Her voice had lost all its usual fake sweetness. Now it sounded sharp, desperate. Speak. What's going on? Why did you do that with the accounts? What do you think, Amber? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. We're stranded here. I got up from the porch and walked into the kitchen. I needed to be moving for this conversation. You know what, Amber? I think you do know. I think you know exactly why I did what I did. I don't know what you're talking about, don't I? You don't know anything about a conversation at Mr. Henderson's law office? You don't know anything about papers to sell the farm? You don't know anything about plans to take me to a nursing home? Total silence. I couldn't even hear the waves in the background anymore. Mother-in-law. Don't call me mother-in-law. Mothers-in-law are family, and you stopped being my family the day you decided to rob me. It wasn't robbery. It was for your own good. A woman your age can't manage such a large property on her own. There it was. The truth, finally. A woman my age. As if 73 were a disease. As if experience were a disability. And who decided that? You? Your mother? My own son. We were all worried about you. Lies. You were worried about the money, about the property, about what you could get if I disappeared from the picture. I heard her pass the phone to someone else. It was Catherine. Margaret, let's be reasonable. You can't stay alone on that farm forever. You need help. You need care. Catherine's voice was condescending, as if she were explaining something to a foolish child. You know what I need, Catherine? I need you and your daughter to stay away from my family. I need you to stop manipulating my son. And I need you to understand that this farm will be mine until the day I die. You're making a terrible mistake. Without us, you can't handle the business. You don't understand banks or taxes or anything. There it was again. The same old song. The poor old woman who doesn't understand anything. The same woman who had managed this farm for 40 years, who had raised cattle, who had negotiated with buyers, who had paid taxes and managed employees long before Amber even knew how to write her name. You know what, Catherine? You're right about one thing. I did make a terrible mistake. But it wasn't today. It was 6 months ago when I trusted you. I hung up for the second time that day. This time I trembled a little, not from fear, but from a strange energy that was coursing through my body, as if I had been asleep for years and was finally waking up completely. Helen was still on the porch, rocking gently and looking at the mountains. Everything okay? She asked without turning to look at me. Everything's perfect. That night, I had dinner alone for the first time in months without feeling lonely. I made myself some scrambled eggs with tomatoes and onions from my own garden. The silence of the house didn't weigh on me. It embraced me. After dinner, I went out to the yard and looked at the stars. It had been years since I had seen them so clearly. Maybe because it had been years since I had taken the time to look up. They would be back tomorrow, furious, desperate, probably with a new plan to convince me I had lost my mind. But for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. They arrived at dusk on the third day. Like a storm you see coming from afar. David's car kicked up a cloud of dust on the road that took several minutes to settle. I was watering the plants in the garden, but I left the hose running and sat in the rocking chair on the porch to wait for them. They got out of the car like actors in a poorly rehearsed play. David first, with that scolded child's face he used to make when his father caught him in some mischief. Amber next, in her wrinkled green dress and her hair disheveled from the trip. And finally, Catherine, adjusting her expensive sunglasses even though the sun was already setting. None of them looked at me directly at first. They just stood there, as if waiting for me to speak first, as if I owed them an explanation. The silence stretched so long that even the crickets fell quiet. Well, I finally said, without getting up from the rocking chair, my voice calm but firm. David was the first to walk towards the porch. His steps sounded heavy on the wooden planks his father had laid 15 years ago. Mom, we need to talk. Talk. He sat on the step, the position he used as a child when he wanted me to forgive him for something. But he was 42 years old now, and childhood tricks no longer worked on me. I don't understand what happened. Why did you do what you did? You really don't understand, David? Amber approached then, with those high heels that had no place on a farm and made her walk like a duck. Mother-in-law, I think there was a misunderstanding. We never meant to hurt you. I looked at her. Directly for the first time. Her eyes were swollen. She had probably cried during the trip, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration for having lost. A misunderstanding? Is that what you call planning to sell my house behind my back? We just wanted what was best for you. Catherine had stayed by the car, as if ready to flee at any moment, but her voice carried clearly to the porch. Margaret, a woman your age shouldn't be alone in such an isolated place. It's dangerous. I got up from the rocking chair for the first time since they arrived. My legs felt solid, firm, as if they had regained a strength I had forgotten I had. Dangerous? You know what's dangerous, Catherine? Trusting family who plan to rob you. Signing papers without reading because you think your own son would never harm you. David stood up too. In his eyes, I saw something I had never seen before, fear. Fear that his plan had completely failed. Mom, the papers you signed were just to protect you, so that if something happened to you, we could help you. Protect me by calling me crazy? By telling people in town I'm losing my memory? The color drained from his face. He didn't know that I had overheard that conversation last week when they thought I was napping. I never. Yes, you did. You told Mr. Henderson that I was starting to show signs of dementia, that sometimes I didn't remember things, that it was necessary for you to have legal control over my decisions. Amber took a step back, her heels sinking into the soft garden soil. David, maybe we should go. She's upset. I'm not leaving. She's my mom, and I'm going to fix this. Fix what exactly? I asked, my voice coming out louder than I expected, filling the space between us. Fix this misunderstanding? Make you understand that everything we did was with you in mind. I stepped off the porch and walked until I was standing right in front of him. David is tall. He always was. But at that moment, I felt taller than him. You want me to understand? Fine. Then explain to me why you had a buyer for the farm. Explain why you had already set aside money for a nursing home. Explain why Amber was looking up prices for apartments in the city. Every word I said was like a blow. I saw them shrink, search for excuses they no longer had. Mom, we never. No more lies. I've heard enough lies. Catherine finally approached, walking with that fake elegance she uses when she wants to impress. Margaret, be reasonable. You can't live alone forever. You need someone to take care of your affairs. Someone like you? People who plan to rob me and then throw me out like an old dog. No one was going to throw you out. The home we chose is very good. It has gardens and activities. There was the full confession. She wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. A home with gardens and activities. And when did you ask me if I wanted gardens and activities? David ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Because we knew you would say no. You're too stubborn to accept help. Help? Is selling my house help? Is stealing my savings help? We weren't going to steal anything. The money was going to be used to take care of you. Lies. The money was going to be used for them to live comfortably while I rotted in a nursing home. Amber started crying again. Those manipulative tears she used whenever things didn't go her way. Mother-in-law, please. We're family. We can fix this. Family? You call this family? I walked to the garden and cut a white rose from the bush I planted when my granddaughter was born. I held it in my hands, feeling the soft thorns against my fingers. Do you know what real family is? Family is Helen, who warned me about your plans. Family is Mr. Davies, who helped me protect my rights without asking for anything in return. Family is this land that has sustained me for 40 years. But where's your blood? David shouted, desperate. Blood means nothing if the heart is rotten. Catherine stepped forward again, with that fake smile she reserved for special occasions. Margaret, let's be practical. You need us more than you think. Who's going to take care of you when you get sick? Who's going to manage the farm business? I will take care of myself, as I have for 73 years. And as for the farm business, I have some news for you. I went back to the porch and took from my purse the papers I had signed that morning with Mr. Davies. Yesterday, I signed a new will. Everything I have will go to a foundation that helps abused women. Not a single cent, not an inch of land will be for you. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was a silence of defeat, of destroyed plans, of dreams of easy money evaporating like dew in the morning. David sat on the step again, but this time not like a child seeking forgiveness. He sat like a man who finally understood the consequences of his actions. Mom, you can't do that. I'm your only son. Being my only son gave you rights, David, but it also gave you obligations. And you chose to betray me instead of taking care of me. Amber had stopped crying. Now she was looking at me with a pure rage that finally showed her true face. You're crazy. Completely crazy. David, do something. What do you want me to do? I don't know, but you can't let her take everything from us. No one is taking anything from you, I said calmly. You are simply losing something that was never yours. The sun had set completely. The first stars were beginning to appear in the violet sky. It was time for them to leave. Go, I told them. This house is no longer your home. David looked at me as if he hadn't understood the words, as if it were impossible that his mother, the woman who had cleaned his scraped knees and prepared his favorite meals for 40 years, was telling him to leave. Mom, you can't be serious. I have never been more serious in my life. Amber approached then, with the desperation of a cornered animal that made her look ugly despite all her makeup. Mother-in-law, think carefully. Without us, you have no one. What are you going to do when you get sick? When you need help? I'm going to do the same thing I've always done. Solve my problems on my own. But you're 73 years old. And you're 35, but you act like you're 5. Age is no excuse for being useless, Amber. Catherine had already gotten into the car, probably calculating that this battle was lost. But she shouted from the window, Margaret, this isn't over. We have legal rights. The papers you signed give us power. Those papers? I took the folder I had taken to the lawyer out of my purse. Are you referring to these papers that have already been nullified? Or these other ones where it's proven that you pressured me to sign without legal representation? Her face fell. Even from a distance, I could see how reality hit her like a hammer. That's impossible. Those documents are valid. They were valid until Mr. Davies proved there was emotional coercion. It turns out the law protects senior citizens from abusive children. Who would have thought? David stood up abruptly, so fast that the step planks creaked. We are not abusive. Everything we did was for your own good. For my own good? David, look around. Look at this farm I built with my own hands. Look at this house where I raised you. Do you really think I don't know what's good for me? I walked to the garden where my roses were, the same ones I had planted when he was little, and he asked me why. Flowers had thorns. To protect themselves from those who want to hurt them, I had explained. I never thought that one day he would be one of those threats. Look, David, do you see these roses? I planted them 20 years ago. I've cared for them, pruned them, protected them from pests. No one else knows how to care for them like I do. No one else knows how much water they need, when to fertilize them, how to protect them from the cold. I turned to him, holding the white rose I had cut. This farm is the same. I know how every foot of this land works. I know every tree, every animal, every problem that can arise. I've managed droughts, floods, pests, low prices, high prices. I've done it alone for years, especially after your father died. But Mom, no, let me finish. In all these years, did you ever see me fail? Did a harvest ever get lost because of me? Were we ever unable to pay the bills? Did this family ever go hungry? He couldn't answer because the answer was no. I had never failed. I had never let anything bad happen to this family. So why did you decide I could no longer take care of myself? Why? Because Amber told me that. Amber told you. And since when does Amber know more about my life than I do? Amber stepped forward with her fists clenched. I was just trying to help. Your son was worried about you. Lies. My son was worried about the money, and you were worried about getting a house without having to work to pay for it. That's not true, is it? Then explain to me why the day after I signed the papers, you had already set aside $50,000 to buy an apartment in the city. David's face went white. He didn't know I had seen the messages on his phone when he left it on the table during lunch. How do you know that? Because I'm not blind, David, nor deaf, nor stupid. I saw the messages with the real estate agent. I saw the floor plans for the apartment you wanted to buy with my money. Catherine got out of the car again, but this time she looked like a wounded beast. All of this is normal. Children always inherit from their parents. We were just speeding up the process. Speeding up? Do you mean you were waiting for me to die? No, I mean it was logical to plan for the future. The future? My future? Without asking me what I wanted for my future. I walked to the fence that divides my property from Helen's. In the distance, I could see the light from her kitchen. She was probably making dinner, unaware that the war that would define the rest of my life was unfolding here. Do you know what my future was in your plans? 3 meals a day in a communal dining room. A single bed in a room I would share with a stranger. Scheduled activities as if I were a 5-year-old child. Visits once a month if you had time. The home we chose was very good. Amber protested. Did you visit it? Well, we saw the pictures online. The pictures online? You were going to lock up your husband's mother in a place you didn't even know in person. David approached then, with that lost child's face that broke my heart despite everything. Mom, forgive me. I know we messed up, but we can fix this. We can start over. For a moment. Just a moment. I was tempted to forgive. To hug him like when he was little and had nightmares. To tell him everything was going to be okay. But then I remembered the conversation I had overheard 3 nights ago when they thought I was asleep. David telling Amber, it won't be long now. When she's in the home, we can do whatever we want with the farm. Start over, I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. As if nothing happened? Yes, exactly. We can forget all this. David, look me in the eyes. He did. In those eyes, I saw the boy he had been, but also the man he had become, a man capable of betraying his own mother for money. I can't forget. And even if I could, I don't want to. Why? Because what you did taught me something important. That family is not just blood. Family is respect. It is affection. It is protection. You took all 3 things from me. Amber started walking towards the car, dragging her feet on the ground. David, let's go. She's not going to change her mind. I'm not leaving. She's my mom. Your mom has already made her decision, and we can't stay here like beggars. David looked at me one last time. In his eyes was something I had never seen before, the understanding that he had lost something forever. Not just the inheritance, not just the money. He had lost his mother. Is there really no way to fix this? There was a way, David. It was called not betraying me. Mom, go. Please, before I say something I might regret. He stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, he walked to the car with slow steps, as if each step pained him. Before getting in, he turned one last time. I love you, Mom. I loved you too, David. Past tense. The car started, kicking up dust again. I watched the taillights recede down the road until they became red dots in the darkness. When they disappeared completely, I sat on the porch step. For the first time in days, everything was silent. And for the first time in years, that silence felt like peace. I sat on the porch step until the stars completely filled the sky. The night air smelled of jasmine and damp earth, a scent that had always calmed me. But that night, it had a different flavor. It tasted of freedom. Helen appeared on the path connecting our properties, walking slowly with a steaming mug in her hands. "Mind if I sit with you?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Not at all. In fact, I need the company." She settled on the step next to me and handed me the mug. Hot chocolate with cinnamon. Exactly what my soul needed at that moment. "I saw them leave," she said after a while. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect." We sat in silence, sharing the chocolate. Helen has that wisdom of knowing when to talk and when to simply be present. "You know what's the strangest thing?" I finally said. "I thought I would feel sad. I thought I would cry. That I would regret it. And you don't feel that way?" "No. I feel free. As if a weight I didn't know I was carrying has been lifted from my shoulders." Helen nodded slowly. "My grandmother used to say that sometimes you have to prune the sick branches so the tree can grow healthy." Obliged. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I didn't wake up at 3 in the morning worrying if I had properly secured the bank accounts. I didn't get up thinking about what excuse Amber would invent to ask for money. For the first time in a while, my mind was at peace. The next morning, as I was making coffee, the phone rang. For a moment, I thought it would be David, apologizing or trying to manipulate me again. But it was Mr. Davies. "Mrs. Margaret, good morning. How are you feeling?" "Like new, Mr. Davies." "And you?" "Very well. I'm calling because I wanted to confirm some details of the will we signed yesterday." "Are you sure about your decisions?" "More sure than ever." "Perfect. I also wanted to inform you that your son came to my office very early this morning. He wanted to know if there was any way to contest the changes you made." I wasn't surprised. David had always been persistent when he wanted something. "And what did you tell him?" "I explained that the documents are perfectly legal and that you are in full possession of your mental faculties. I also suggested that if he wanted to reconcile with you, he should come and talk to you directly, not through lawyers." "And what did he say?" "He left without a word." After hanging up, I decided it was time to start my new life in earnest. I couldn't stay lamenting the past. I had to build something new, something meaningful. I walked all over the farm, seeing it with different eyes. It was no longer just the property I had inherited from my husband. It was no longer just the place where I had raised my son. Now it was my future, my project, my legacy. The house needed repairs. The kitchen roof had leaks we had ignored for months because we didn't have the money to fix it, according to Amber. But now that I didn't have to support 3 non-working adults, I did have money. I called Mr. Peterson, the town's contractor, an honest man who had worked for us for years. "Mrs. Margaret, what a pleasure to hear from you. How can I help you?" "Mr. Peterson, I need you to come and look at the house. I want to make all the repairs we've been putting off. All of them." "Are you sure? That's going to be a big project." "I have time and I have money. When can you come?" "I'll stop by tomorrow morning if that works for you." Next, I called the veterinarian. For months, I had wanted to buy more chickens and maybe some goats, but Catherine complained about the noise and the smell. "Dr. Bell, this is Margaret. Could you advise me on expanding my coop?" "Of course. What do you have in mind?" "I want to start a small farm. Chickens, goats, maybe some pigs. Something that will give me a steady income, but also keep me busy." "That sounds like an excellent idea. Is your family on board?" "My family is me, doctor, and I am completely on board." That afternoon, Helen and I sat at the dining room table making plans. She brought paper and pencil, and I laid all my ideas on the table. "What if we start a small home-cooked meal business?" Helen suggested. "Your cooking is delicious, and I know how to make preserves and jams. Do you think it would work?" "There's no one in town who sells homemade food. All the women work outside the home now. I'm sure there's a market." We started crunching the numbers. With the savings I no longer had to share with David and his family, I could invest in basic equipment for a small commercial kitchen. And we could sell at the Saturday market, Helen added, or even do home delivery. For the first time in years, I was excited about something. I had a project, a purpose, a reason to get up every morning that wasn't just survival. That night, as I ate dinner alone in the kitchen, I realized something. The house felt bigger, not emptier, bigger, as if I had reclaimed spaces I didn't know I had lost. The phone rang at 9 at night. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Margaret." The voice was of a young, shy woman. "Yes, this is Margaret." "Who is this, please?" "It's Jeremy's wife, your neighbor, Mrs. Thompson's son." She gave me your number. Jeremy, the young man who had studied business administration and now worked in the city. "What can I do for you, honey?" "Mrs. Thompson told me you're thinking of starting a food business. I work in marketing, and I was wondering if you would need any help." "What kind of help?" "Well, I could help you with social media, with label design, with promotion. I would love to be part of a project like that." "And how much would you charge for that help?" "Nothing at first. If the business works out, we could talk about a small partnership. But first, I just want to help you get off the ground." I hung up the phone with a huge smile. I didn't just have a project. I had a team. The next day, Mr. Peterson arrived early with his tape measure and notebook. We went over the whole house, from the roof to the foundations. Mrs. Margaret, this house is solid. It just needs some love and maintenance. How long would it take to make it like new? About 3 months, working every day. But it's going to look like a palace. Do it. While Mr. Peterson was taking measurements, I walked to the back of the property where I had always wanted to build a small workshop. My late husband had dreamed of having his carpentry shop there, but we never found the time or the money. Now I had both. I took out my phone and dialed the number of the construction company. Good morning. I need a quote for a new construction. What type of construction? A carpentry workshop. And next to it, a small commercial kitchen. When do you need it by? I'm in no hurry, but I want it to be perfect. For the first time in 73 years, I was building something just for me, without having to ask for permission, without having to justify expenses, without having to listen to complaints about the noise or the mess. It was my money, my land, my decision, and it felt glorious. 6 months passed before I heard from David again. 6 months in which my life changed completely, as if I had emerged from a chrysalis and could finally fly. The house turned out beautiful. Mr. Peterson hadn't exaggerated when he said it would look like a palace. New roofs, restored floors, walls painted a soft yellow that made the whole house feel full of sun. The commercial kitchen worked perfectly, and the carpentry workshop was exactly as my husband would have dreamed. Helen and I had turned our home-cooked meal project into a small empire. We sold pies on Tuesdays, pastries on Thursdays, and preserves every day. On weekends, the town market was filled with people who came specifically to buy our products. Mrs. Margaret, Mr. Henderson, the notary, would tell me every time he passed by our stall, "You've aged backwards 10 years. And it was true. I felt stronger, clearer, more alive than I had in a long time. I worked from 5 in the morning until 7 at night, but it was work that filled me with satisfaction instead of draining me. Jeremy's wife, whose name was Ashley, had been a blessing. She created a social media page that had thousands of followers. She named it Grandma Margaret's Kitchen. And although I protested because I wasn't anyone's grandmother, the name stuck. We had hired 3 young women from the town to help us. Young women who needed work and were quick learners. The house, which had been so quiet for years, was now filled with laughter and conversation from early in the morning. We had also started a small program to help women in difficult situations. Women who, like me, had been manipulated or mistreated by their families. We taught them skills, gave them temporary work, and helped them get legal advice. It's as if this house had been waiting all this time for you to wake it up, Ashley told me one afternoon. She was right. The house had been sleeping, waiting for me to have the courage to live my own life. It was a Tuesday afternoon when David arrived. I was in the workshop sanding some boards to make a new shelf when I heard the car on the road. But this time, he didn't arrive with anger or desperation. He came alone, walking slowly like someone who comes to apologize. I saw him from the workshop window. He had lost weight. His clothes looked less cared for, and he had a several-day-old beard that made him look older. He stood in the yard, looking at all the changes as if he couldn't believe it was the same house. I came out of the workshop, wiping my hands on my apron. I didn't run to him, but I didn't hide either. "Hi, Mom." "Hello, David." We stood there, separated by a few feet that felt like miles. "The house looks different. It's alive again." He nodded slowly, as if he understood the message behind my words. "Can I sit down?" "It's your decision." He sat on the porch step in the same place he had sat last time, but now he looked small, defeated. "Mom, I came to apologize." I didn't answer. I had learned the power of silence. I know what we did was wrong. I know there's no excuse, but I wanted you to know that I've realized everything. Everything what? That you were right, that Amber manipulated me, that I lost the most important person in my life because of greed. And Amber, she left 3 months ago. She took everything she could and left with a man she met in the city. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I didn't feel pity either. It was simply information. And Catherine is in a nursing home. Her own son committed her when she ran out of money. The irony was perfect, but I said nothing. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know it's probably too late, but I wanted you to know that I've learned. That by losing you, I realized what really matters in life." I sat in the rocking chair, but kept my distance. "What do you want, David?" "Nothing. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm just here to tell you that I love you, that I've always loved you, even if my actions said otherwise." "And what have you been doing these months?" "Working. I work in construction now. It's hard, but it's honest. I sleep in a rented room, eat at cheap diners. I'm trying to understand how I became so stupid." For the first time in the conversation, his eyes filled with real tears. Not tears of manipulation, but of real remorse. "I see the life you've built without us. And I realize that we were the ones holding you back. You didn't need us to take care of you. We were the ones who needed you." At that moment, Helen came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Margaret, everything okay? Everything's fine. Helen, I'd like you to meet David, my son. Helen looked at him with that look older women have when they're sizing up a man. A look that sees straight into the soul. A pleasure, David. I've heard a lot about you. David turned red. He knew exactly what kind of things Helen had heard. The pleasure is mine, ma'am. Are you staying for dinner? David looked at me, waiting for my answer. You can stay if you want, but not as family. As a guest. I understand. Helen left, but not before winking at me. She knew she was giving me space to decide what to do. Mom, do you think that someday we could try to be a family again? I don't know, David. Family isn't something you can break and glue back together like a vase. Once trust is broken, things are never the same again. I know, but maybe they could be different. Better. Better how? More honest, more respectful, more real. I looked at him for a long time. In his eyes, I no longer saw the manipulative man who had tried to rob me. I saw the boy he had been, but I also saw something new. Real humility. Do you know what you have to do if you want to try to rebuild something with me? What? You have to earn it. Not with words, but with actions. You have to prove to me over months, maybe years, that you have truly changed. How? By working honestly. By living honestly. By respecting my decisions, even if you don't like them. By treating me like a whole human being, not like an old woman who needs to be cared for. And if I do all that? If you do all that, maybe someday we can be friends. But we will never go back to being the mother and son we were before. That relationship died the day you decided to betray me. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. I understand. And I accept those conditions. Good. Then you can start by staying for dinner. But then you leave. And if you want to come back, you let me know beforehand. Thank you, Mom. You don't know what this means to me. Don't call me Mom yet. Call me Margaret. You have to earn the right to call me Mom again. That night, the three of us had dinner in silence. David ate slowly, as if it were the first home-cooked meal he'd had in months. It probably was. When he finished, he helped me wash the dishes without being asked. Helen had gone to her house, leaving us alone. The food was delicious, he told me. Thank you. Can I ask you something? Ask. Are you happy? The question took me by surprise. No one had asked me that in years. Yes, I said after thinking about it. For the first time in a long time, I am happy. He left that night without promising to return. Without asking for anything more. He just left. And for the first time in months, the goodbye didn't feel like a war. David came back 3 weeks later. This time he called before coming, as I had asked him to. Margaret, can I visit you on Sunday? I wanted to help you with something if you need it. Help me with what? With whatever. I know you have the food business. Maybe you need someone to carry heavy things or fix something. The offer surprised me. For years, David had avoided any physical work on the farm. He always had an excuse. His back hurt. He had important things to do. That kind of work was for employees. Come on Sunday at 8 in the morning. There are a few things I need fixed. He arrived on time, dressed in work clothes and old boots. He looked different, thinner, but also stronger, as if the physical labor had hardened him in a good way. What do you need me to do? The goat pen needs repairing. Some of the boards are loose. He worked for 4 hours without complaining. I watched him from the kitchen window while I prepared dough for pastries. He moved differently, with more care, with more respect for the tools and materials. He was not the same man who once considered this type of work beneath him. At noon, I brought him a glass of cold water and a plate of food. Thank you, he said, and sat down to eat on the ground, leaning against a tree. Why are you doing this, David? Fixing the pen? All of this coming, working, acting like you're a different person. He chewed slowly before answering. Because when I lost you, I realized I had lost the only person who really knew me. The only one who loved me unconditionally. I loved you unconditionally until you put conditions on it. I know. And I also realized something else. What? That I never really knew you. I thought you were just my mom, the woman who took care of me. But you're so much more than that. He looked around, seeing the thriving business, the improvements to the house, the new energy, and everything. You're a businesswoman. You're a leader. You're a woman who can build an incredible life from scratch. And I was so blind I didn't see it. His words reached me, but I didn't let myself get carried away by emotion. And what do you want to do with that information? I want to get to know you for real. As the person you are, not as the idea I had of you. That's going to take time. I have time. He finished his work and left without asking for anything more. Without asking when he could come back, without suggesting we eat together, without trying to force an intimacy that no longer existed. Over the next few months, David came every 2 weeks. He always called before. He always came to work. He fixed the roof of the chicken coop, painted the fence, helped build a new storage area for the business. Helen watched him with the prudence of an older woman who has seen many broken promises. What do you think of him? I asked her one afternoon. He's trying to be different, but time will tell if it's real or just an act. How can I tell the difference? Men who really change don't make a show of their change. They just change. She was right. David didn't talk much during his visits. He didn't try to impress me with grand gestures or dramatic promises. He just worked, ate what I offered, and left. One day, he arrived with bruises on his hands. What happened to you? A fight at work. A coworker was harassing a new girl, saying nasty things to her. I told him to stop, and he told me to mind my own business. I told him that respecting women was my business. He hadn't said those words to impress me. He had said them because it was the truth. And for the first time in months, I felt something like pride for my son. But the real change I saw 6 months later when he arrived accompanied by an older woman. Margaret, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Davis. She's my boss on the construction site. Mrs. Davis was a woman in her 60s, weathered by the sun and work, with intelligent eyes and strong hands. Mrs. Margaret, your son has told me a lot about you. I wanted to meet the woman who raised one of my best workers. David turned red. David is responsible, punctual, and never complains about hard work, Mrs. Davis continued. But most importantly, he respects the women on the team. That's not common in this business. After they left, I thought about Mrs. Davis's words. David had really changed, not just with me, but in all aspects of his life. He called me that night. Margaret, tell me, I wanted to thank you. For what? For giving me the chance to get to know you, and for teaching me what respect means. I didn't teach you anything, David. You decided to learn. Maybe, but you had to be very strong to cut me off when it was necessary. Another mother would have forgiven me without another thought, and I would have remained the same terrible man. And now I'm different. Not perfect, but different. And it's thanks to you having the courage to tell me the truth. A year after that first reconciliation visit, David arrived with a proposal. Margaret, I've been thinking about something. About what? Would you like for us to be partners? Partners in what? In the business. Not as a son who inherits, but as a partner who contributes work and earns his share. The idea intrigued me. What would you contribute? Physical labor, deliveries, building a larger kitchen if you decide to expand, and something more important, respect for your leadership. And what would you want in return? A fair salary, a share of the profits if the business grows, and maybe someday, if I earn it, for you to call me your son again. I looked at him for a long time. In his face, I no longer saw the manipulative man who had tried to rob me. I saw someone who had paid the price for his mistakes and had decided to build something better. And what if things go wrong? If we fight again? Then we part ways as partners who didn't work out, but not as enemies. And if it works? If it works, we build something together, something we can both be proud of. It was a risky proposal, but it was also an honest one. Give me time to think about it. All the time you need. That night, I spoke with Helen. What do you think? I think he's not the same man who betrayed you, but I also think you're not the same woman who let herself be betrayed. Do you think I should try? I think you should do what makes you happy, but with your eyes wide open. 2 weeks later, I gave him my answer. I accept the partnership, but with very clear conditions. Whatever you say. A written contract. A review every 6 months. And at the first sign of disrespect, it's all over. I accept. Good. Then we start on Monday. And David. Yes. You can call me Mom again. You've earned it. For the first time in almost 2 years, I saw him cry. But these were tears of gratitude, not of manipulation. Thank you, Mom. I won't fail you again. I know. Because if you do, this time there won't be a third chance. I know, and I promise you won't need one. 3 years have passed since David and I became partners. 3 years in which we have built something that neither of us could have imagined when everything fell apart. The business grew beyond our wildest dreams. Grandma Margaret's kitchen now has 2 locations, one in town and one in the city. We employ 15 people, all women from the area who needed decent work. Ashley, the young woman who helped us with marketing, is now our general manager. But the most important thing is not the numbers in the bank accounts. The most important thing is what we built as a family. David kept every one of his promises. He works from 5 in the morning until night. He handles deliveries. He supervises the construction of new facilities. And never, not once, has he questioned my decisions as the boss. You know what I like most about working with you? He told me recently as we were loading boxes for a large delivery. What? That I finally see you for who you really are. Not as the mom who took care of me, but as the smart and strong woman you always were. Those words filled my heart in a way I hadn't felt in years. Helen is still my partner and my best friend. She now officially lives in the house with me. We turn the guest room into her personal bedroom. And at night, we sit on the porch planning new projects while we drink herbal tea we grow in our garden. Can you imagine if they had told us 5 years ago that we would be successful businesswomen in our 70s? She says, laughing. I would have told you that you were crazy and you would have been wrong. The program to help abused women became a real foundation. We have a small shelter at the back of the property where women fleeing abusive situations can stay while they rebuild their lives. We teach them skills, help them with legal advice, and support them until they can stand on their own. Yesterday, a 25-year-old woman arrived with 2 small children. Her husband had threatened to take the children away if she left him. The same threat Amber had used on me, but with my own resources. "Can I really stay here without paying anything?" she asked me with eyes full of fear. "Not only can you stay, but you're going to learn to do something you like that will give you financial independence, and when you're ready to leave, we'll help you find your own place." "Why are you doing this for me?" "You don't know me. Because all women deserve the opportunity to live with dignity, and because someone taught me that sometimes you have to be very brave to save your own life." This morning, as I was preparing dough for Tuesday's pies, the phone rang. For a moment, I thought it would be David apologizing or trying to manipulate me again, but it was Mr. Davies. "Mrs. Margaret, I'm calling to give you some news. Good or bad?" "Very good. Your foundation just received an anonymous donation of $50,000. I sat in the nearest chair. $50,000. The same amount David had tried to steal years ago. Do you know who made it? I can't tell you, but I have my suspicions. That afternoon, when David arrived from work, I confronted him. "It was you who donated the money to the foundation." He turned red, just like when I caught him doing something he shouldn't as a child. "How did you know?" "Because it's exactly $50,000. The same amount you tried to steal. It's not all the money I owe you, but it's a start." "David, that money was for you too. You're my partner." "No, Mom. That money was my way of closing a circle, of turning something bad into something good." I got up and hugged him. A real, deep hug, full of the love that had been stored away for years of pain. "I'm proud of you," I whispered. "And I'm proud to be your son." This afternoon, as the sun sets over the mountains that have seen my whole life, I sit in the rocking chair on the porch, reflecting on these last few years. The house is full of life again. I can hear laughter from the kitchen where the girls are finishing up cleaning after a day's work. I can hear voices from the shelter where the women we are helping are reading stories to their children. I can hear the sound of the goats and chickens in the pen that David repaired with his own hands. Helen comes out of the kitchen with 2 cups of hot chocolate, as she does every night. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. That my husband was right. About what? He once told me that women are like trees, that we can survive the most terrible droughts, but that when the rains come, we bloom more beautifully than before. He was a wise man. Yes, and I think he would have liked to see what I've become. David arrives in his truck, tired but smiling. He now lives in a small house he bought in town, but he comes to have dinner with us almost every night. "How was your day?" I ask him. "Perfect. We delivered everything on time. The clients were happy, and Mrs. Davis offered me a bigger contract for next month." "And are you going to accept it?" "Only if you agree. I don't want it to affect our business." That's the difference. Now he asks me. Now he respects my opinions. Now he understands that we are partners, not boss and employee. Except the business can manage on its own for a few weeks. "Thanks, Mom." The 3 of us have dinner in the dining room, talking about plans to expand the shelter and maybe open a 3rd branch. Ashley wants us to explore the possibility of selling our products online throughout the country. Can you imagine, Margaret? Helen says, "Women all over America eating your pies." "Our pies," I correct her. "We built this together." After dinner, David goes to his house and Helen retires to her room. I stay on the porch a while longer, looking at the stars that shine brighter than ever. I think about the woman I was 5 years ago. A woman who had become invisible in her own home. A woman who had lost her voice, her strength, her dignity. A woman who was so used to giving that she had forgotten she also had the right to receive. That woman died the day I decided to freeze the bank accounts. She died when I chose to defend myself instead of remaining a victim. She died when I understood that true love is not sacrificing your dignity for others, but respecting your own and teaching others to respect it too. In her place, this woman was born, an entrepreneur, a leader, a protector of other women, a mother to a son who finally understands what respect means. The phone rings one last time before I go to bed. It's Ashley, the manager. "Mrs. Margaret, I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I wanted to give you some news." "What happened?" "A national magazine just called. They want to do an article on women entrepreneurs over 70. You are their first choice. An article about you and about everything you've built. They say your story is inspiring for thousands of women who feel trapped in their own lives." After hanging up, I walked to the garden where my roses are, the same ones I planted 20 years ago to teach David about the thorns that protect beauty. I cut a white rose, the same variety I cut the night he left. But this time, I don't cut it with pain. I cut it with gratitude. Gratitude for having had the courage to say enough. Gratitude for having found the strength to build a new life. Gratitude for having learned that it is never too late to bloom. I look up at the starry sky and whisper the words my husband told me in our last year together. "A legacy is not a monument, Margaret. It is a map you leave for others to find their own way. I finally understand what he meant. My legacy is not the businesses I built or the money I earned. My legacy is the women I helped find their strength. It's the son who learned to respect. It's the living proof that it is never too late to rescue your own life. I go into the house and turn off the lights one by one. Tomorrow will be another day full of work, of projects, of women who need help and hope. And I will be ready, because I am finally who I was always meant to be. Margaret. Simply Margaret. And that is more than enough. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family to protect yourself or your future? How did it turn out? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd really love to hear them.